Hey guys, welcome back to some more Football Manager 2019. I'm Joe, if you're new around here, and welcome to part 2 of my Football Manager Predicting the Future series. Today we have 100 years in the future. I just want to say thank you for all the support on the first part, which was 50 years in the future. And just a reminder that I'm doing this on Football Manager Touch, just to speed up the simulation process. So yeah, thank you for all the support on that. Obviously there was some fairly surprising things in the first episode, which included England winning, I think it was 3 Euros on the bounce or something like that. Maybe I'm making that up, who knows. But without further ado, we'll have a little look at the World Cup and see how they've got on in the last 50 years since the last video. Now Brazil have went on a streak again, which is insane, but we left it off here with Germany winning the 2066 World Cup. Spain then won the next one. Argentina, Germany, England, Germany, Spain. Holland is probably the biggest surprise in there. France win it a couple of times, and then Brazil winning it 3 more times. So I think, yes, Brazil are still the record holders in terms of that. England won it in 2082 and then finished runners-up at the next 2 and 3rd at the next. So England had a real golden generation in this time from 2082 to 94. If we have a little look at England's records, have they had their all-time top scorer as Ross Redmond. Now, we don't know who he is. We can't actually have a look at him. That's the sort of disadvantage of doing it on FM Touch. But yes, so the all-time top goal scorer record has been smashed. I think it's about 53 at the minute, and now it's 120. 100 years in the future, which is absolutely crazy. Rooney's still the youngest ever player. Stanley Matthews still the oldest ever player, or at least goal scorer. Most cap players, Adam Shaw with 195 again, another regen it would appear. I thought they had a new stadium. I wonder if England have a new stadium. If we have a little look at their overview, is it information that it's found on? I'm not entirely sure. Wembley, they're still playing at Wembley in 2119. And yeah, still got a 90,000 capacity. So I don't know whether that's something in the game that changes national stadiums, not entirely sure. But somebody did ask in the comments to the last video to have a look at the FIFA World Rankings. These are those rankings, so you can see Brazil are leading the way. China 12th, that is a huge result for them. It'll be interesting to see their rise through the ranks. Can we have a look at the graph? Here's the graph, certainly for the last 10 years. So they went down to a low of 17th, but they've been generally very consistent over the last 10 to 12 years, which is very good. Scotland up there in 3rd. Is there any other sort of weird ones? I guess Australia being that high, maybe, but again, it's a little bit less surprising, I guess. But yeah, so those are the FIFA rankings, or certainly the top of the FIFA rankings. I don't think anybody's that bothered about the sort of lower ranked nations. The European Football Championship, Portugal are the current holders, but yeah, England won it 3 out of 4 years, so that's what we were talking about before. Germany had won the most recent one when we left off, and then England won it once again. It looks like that we're in a little bit of a cycle of host nations. Scotland and Wales seem to do it a lot, Switzerland and Austria. Interesting. Spain went through a period of very much being unlucky in it. From 2088 all the way up to 2100, they were the runners up in Europe. Ukraine is probably the most surprising that I can see there. Scotland got to the final in 2080. They also did in 2040, actually, England versus Scotland in a final in Germany. That sounds really fun. But as you can see, the European Football Championship not exactly pulling up any surprises. So, without further ado, let's go over to the Premier League and see how that's developed over the last 50 years. Newcastle have actually won it, and I'm pretty sure did they win it the last season that we looked. No, it was Liverpool. Don't know where I got Newcastle from, but as you can see, Liverpool won it again, and then a sort of a top 6 dominance on it. Brighton finishing second 1 year, which is good to see. Watford then had a period of domination of the Premier League from 2086 to 2095, winning plenty of Premier League titles, which is interesting to see. I wonder whether they got any sort of tycoon around about that time. Yeah, tycoon, there you go. In 2079 they got a tycoon. It took them another sort of 6-7 years to get to the place where they are now, and they're still a top 6 side in the Premier League, which is really, really cool to see. Newcastle have obviously won their first title in 2096. I wonder again whether they were took over by a tycoon at some point. No, by the looks of it. Unless, oh no, they were 2080. I wonder whether that was when Mike Ashley actually stood down. Shall we see when Mike Ashley left? 2018, November 2018. So, Newcastle fans out there, you don't have to wait much longer, according to Football Manager, to get rid of Mike Ashley. Watford in there as well. Tottenham having a little period up here where they're playing very well. But let's have a look at the current shape of the Premier League. So Newcastle, obviously the champions. We've then got Tottenham, Arsenal and Chelsea in the top 4. West Ham, Watford and Man City rounded out the European places. So Liverpool and Man United very much mid-table sides, along with Everton. Leeds are still up in the Premier League. Rotherham are up in the Premier League. I don't know how long they've been there. I wonder if we've got the lovely little graph we have. Yeah, this is what I wanted to see. So you can see there, the slow rise up the league since League One back in the late 90s, and they've come up into the Premier League in the sort of early 2100s. If we head back, Reading in there, Bournemouth, there's not many huge surprises. Coventry, nice to see them back in the Premier League, albeit just for the one season, but it looks like they have been up here for a few years now, which is great to see. Good to see Coventry back in the league. There's no team screaming out at us as to not being in the league anymore, and Sunderland, the Sunderland check, I wonder if they ever got back into the Premier League. That is something. They are in the Sky Bet Championship, so it is quite possible that they would have made their way out at some point. There they are there. So did they make it through? They did. They made it back into the Premier League, which is good to see for Sunderland fans at least. But anyway, that is the English Premier Division. Let's have a little look at La Liga and see if Barcelona are still very much dominating that. I think it's Spanish First Division on this version of the game. By the way, I've got the logos in now, so hopefully everything's a lot nicer and cleaner than it was before. And as you can see, Barcelona is still very much dominating the league. It's absolutely crazy. Real Madrid have finally won a few, considering they didn't win since 2049 the last time we looked. Bilbao is a big shock, I guess. But it's just a sea of Madrid and Barcelona's in there. That is disgusting. What about Ligue 1? There we go. Let's have a little look at this one. Wow. Now, Paris Saint-Germain were quite dominant in it in the first 50 years, and then Nantes sort of took over. And then Montpellier have come from nowhere. Angers have come in from nowhere. This is crazy. Bordeaux. What happened here? Were Bordeaux in the picture here? I guess they were. What about in this year, for example? They were 4th. But then all of a sudden, they just won 20 Ligue 1s out of nowhere. And then they've just seemingly dropped off, and Metz have come into play. How strange is that? Where are Bordeaux? They're 10th. That is absolutely crazy. I wonder whether we can see it on their graph. You can see there, look at the rapid decline that they've had. This was still part of their dominant era. That is absolutely crazy. So how many did they win? They won 26. Most of them in the time. They'd won 6 before this, so they won 20 League Ones between 2085 and 2105. That is just mind-boggling, absolutely mind-boggling. Let's see how the Scottish Premier League is doing. I think it's the Ladbrokes Premiership, isn't it? So here we go. Oh my word! I mean, they've won every single Scottish Premiership since we left them off in 2069. Okay, let's move on before Scottish fans absolutely cry at the prospect of that. Serie A, Juventus seem to have come back to the forefront of Italian football, which is good to see. Napoli had a little spell up here. But there's no real shockers in there. France is still mind-boggling for me as to how that happened. Bundesliga, I guess, is the last one to look for before we have a little look at the Champions League. So the Bundesliga then. It'll be interesting to see if Bordeaux have won the Champions League or whether France is just a really terrible league. So as you can see, when we left it off, Leipzig started their little period of dominance. Wolfsburg again winning a couple. Dortmund winning a few titles as well. But yeah, it's sort of been seesawing between Wolfsburg and Leipzig over the last 50 years. Schalke bobbing their heads in there, and they've actually won the last 2. So it very much a 3-horse race in Germany at the moment. And we seen this on last year's. Bayern Munich actually got relegated to Bundesliga Division 2, whatever it is, Zweite Bundesliga, I think it's called, and ended up not managing to get back into the top flight in Germany for about 300 years, which was crazy. But as you can see, it's not been quite that dramatic, but they haven't won the Bundesliga since, let's see, 2081. Wow. That is pretty crazy. So that's 38 years that Bayern Munich haven't won the title for. So let's have a look at the Champions League, and we'll see if there's been any sort of big shocks in that for winners. I've just seen that a French team, Lyon, has won the most recent one. But if we go down to 2069, where we had Leipzig winning, Man City won a couple, West Ham. I'm really curious as to whether Bordeaux ever won it, and they did, 2094. So 10 years after their first title, they won it, even though Angers were winning it. Also were Montpellier. That's pretty crazy. And there's not been an English team in there for absolutely years. Metz in there, Lyon. Crazy. When was the last? Liverpool were the last in 2077. So English domination of the Champions League from the early parts of this save has seemed to have gone, and it's now Barcelona versus France, basically, and a couple of Leipzig victories in there. I guess Germany have featured quite prominently in it, to be fair to them. And what I'd really love to see is the league rankings, but we don't unfortunately have that on FM Touch, so we can't see how the league is doing, as far as I know anyway. You guys will have to let me know down in the comments. We'll have a little look at the Euro Cup before we finish off this episode. I don't really see the point in having a look at, well, I guess we will have a look at the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup before we finish off. But look at this. France are dominating both competitions in Europe. England have got a few winners in here. Borussia Mönchengladbach are a weird one in there, but Nancy are in there as well. France have all of a sudden took over as a very big player in Europe, which is very, very strange considering that they were probably the weakest nation back then, and they're the nation that's got the least sort of competitive nature in their division. I've pressed the wrong button. I thought for a second there was still a real player in the game, and I was questioning how that was possible. Bolton have won one. They're a Sky Bet Championship team. Let's have a little look. I'm mainly looking to see if there's any weird ones. Bolton is the best one. Preston is in there as well. Barnsley getting to the final. Blackburn as well. So there is some weird ones in the Carabao Cup, which is actually quite refreshing to see. What about the FA Cup? And then we'll finish off this episode, which is, I've kept to quite a decent timetable in this one, which is quite good. So yeah, Nottingham Forest actually winning one. Don't know what happened to them. They were in the Premier League for many years, and you can see they've had a similar. That is scary how similar that graph probably looks to the one from the present day. That is absolutely crazy. I wonder whether I should have a look in the real game and see how similar that is. If Future Joe remembers this, get a screenshot of that and just place it up alongside at this point of the video, because that looks scarily similar to what it will look like in today's market. Wow. Watford, I mean we're seeing little spells of teams winning it back-to-back. Preston, Brighton in there. But yeah, not as many weird ones in the FA Cup, which is what you'd expect. People care about the FA Cup a little bit more. But that is where we're going to leave it for today. If you have enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like down below. If I have missed stuff, please do leave it down in the comments section. The next video will be 250 years in the future. I'm already in the process of simulating it. We're at about 2181 at the minute, so expect it maybe Sunday or something like that for 250 years in the future. Certainly early next week, if not. So if you have enjoyed, make sure you leave a like, leave your thoughts down below, subscribe to the channel for Football Manager content every single day, and I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.